The Zephyrian delegation arrived on Earth with confidence bordering on arrogance. Their sleek obsidian ships cast shadows over New Geneva as they descended, carrying within them what they considered their ultimate weapon, the Vorthek. Ambassador Krell's four eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he addressed the human representatives in the United Nations Assembly Hall. His translator device rendered his clicks and hisses in the perfect English. "Humans," he began, his voice carrying the weight of assumed superiority, "your species has proven ... troublesome. Your expansion into our territories, your stubborn resistance to our reasonable demands, all of this ends today." Secretary General Martinez leaned forward in her chair. "Ambassador, we've been through this before. Humanity seeks peaceful coexistence, but we will not surrender our colonies." Krell's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. "You misunderstand, human. We have brought with us the apex predator of our homeworld. The Vorthek has never failed to break the spirit of any species that has dared oppose us. When you see what true predatory perfection looks like, you will understand your place in this galaxy." The creature they wheeled into the assembly hall was indeed impressive. Standing nearly 8 feet tall on powerful hind legs, the Vorthek possessed razor-sharp claws, rows of serrated teeth, and eyes that seemed to burn with predatory intelligence. Its scaled hide rippled with muscle, and its tail ended in a cluster of bone spikes. Several diplomats gasped, and a few reached instinctively for weapons that weren't there. "Behold," Krell announced dramatically, "perfection in predatory form, evolved over millions of years to be the ultimate hunter. No prey has ever escaped the Vorthek once it has caught their scent." The creature roared, a sound that rattled windows and sent vibrations through the floor. Its massive head swiveled, scanning the humans with calculating intelligence. Secretary General Martinez, to her credit, didn't flinch. "Very impressive, Ambassador. However, we humans have some experience with predators ourselves." "Impossible," Krell scoffed. "Your species evolved from weak prey animals. You lack claws, fangs, natural armor, or any significant predatory adaptations. What could you possibly know of true hunters?" Martinez smiled an expression that, had Krell understood human facial expressions better, might have given him pause. "Dr. Chun, would you please bring in our demonstration?" Dr. Chun, the xenobiologist assigned to the human delegation, nodded and stepped outside. Moments later, she returned carrying a small pet carrier. The Zephyrians leaned forward, curious about what pathetic creature the humans thought could compare to their magnificent Vorthek. The carrier was placed on the floor and open. Out stepped Whiskers. Whiskers was a perfectly ordinary orange tabby cat. He weighed maybe 12 pounds, had one slightly bent ear from a childhood adventure, and was currently more interested in the strange new smells of the assembly hall than the towering alien predator nearby. The Zephyrian silence stretched for a long moment before dissolving into what could only be described as laughter. Krell's translator barely kept up with his amused chittering. "This is your answer to the Vorthek. This this tiny, soft creature. It has no claws worth mentioning, no fangs, no armor. It is barely the size of a Vorthek's head." Dr. Chun knelt beside Whiskers, scratching behind his ears. "Oh, he has claws," she said mildly. "And you're right, he is quite small. But Ambassador, you're missing something important about predators." The Vorthek, noticing the small creature for the first time, lowered its massive head and began stalking toward Whiskers. Its movements were fluid, practiced, the result of millions of years of evolution crafting the perfect killer. Whiskers looked up from his examination of an interesting dust particle. What happened next would be studied by xenobiologists for generations. The Vorthek approached with all the confidence of an apex predator confronting something it perceived as easy prey. But as it drew closer, Whiskers did something that defied every predatory instinct the alien creature possessed. Whiskers didn't run. He didn't cower. He didn't try to make himself look bigger or more threatening. Instead, Whiskers simply sat down, wrapped his tail around his paws, and stared directly at the Vorthik with that peculiar feline expression of supreme indifference that every cat owner knows well. The Vorthik stopped, confused. In its experience, prey either fled or fought. This small creature was doing neither. It was simply existing, calmly, unimpressed. The great predator lowered its head further, bringing its massive jaws within. Striking distance, Whiskers yawned. You see, Dr. Chun explained to the increasingly uncomfortable Zephyrians, evolution isn't just about creating perfect predators. It's also about creating perfect survivors. And cats? Well, cats are something special. The Vorthik, growing frustrated by the lack of appropriate prey behavior, let out a threatening growl. The sound reverberated through the hall like thunder. Whiskers blinked slowly once, twice, then began to purr. The alien predator recoiled as if struck. The sound was unlike anything in his experience. Not a threat, not a submission display, not a fear response. Something entirely other. Cats, Dr. Chung continued, are ambush predators, yes. But they're also one of the most successful species on Earth precisely because they mastered something your Vorthik never learned. Whiskers stood, stretched in that languid way cats do, and began walking directly toward the massive alien predator. The Vorthik backed away. They learn, Dr. Chun said, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence, that the most dangerous predator isn't the one that fights everything. It's the one that doesn't need to. Whiskers, apparently deciding the Vorthik was worthy of investigation, began rubbing against the creature's leg. The massive predator stood frozen, every instinct screaming contradictory messages. This tiny creature showed no fear, offered no challenge, yet somehow dominated the entire space through sheer presence. Ambassador Krell's voice was barely a whisper through his translator. What is it doing? Claiming territory, Martinez answered with evident satisfaction. Ambassador, meet humanity's most successful predator. Not because it's the biggest or strongest, but because it convinced larger, more powerful species to feed it, shelter it, and love it. 13,000 years ago, cats domesticated humans. Not the other way around. As if to prove the point, Whiskers completed his inspection of the Vorthik and padded over to Secretary General Martinez, who immediately began scratching his chin. The Vorthik, meanwhile, sat down heavily. For the first time in its evolutionary history, it had encountered something that simply refused to be intimidated, threatened, or impressed by its physical superiority. Your Vorthik, Dr. Chun observed clinically, is a magnificent predator. But predation is just one survival strategy. Cats chose a different path. They became indispensable. They made themselves so valuable to other species that those species would fight to protect them. Krell looked between his supposedly invincible Vorthik now lying down and appearing almost deflated, and the small orange cat that had somehow rewritten millions of years of predatory programming in the span of 5 minutes. This is impossible, he stammered. Ambassador, Secretary General Martinez said, still petting Whiskers. Humanity learned from cats. We could have remained hunters, but instead we became builders, explorers, and partners. We made ourselves valuable to the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as allies. She looked directly at Krell, her expression serious but not unkind. That's why you can't intimidate us. Like our cats, we've learned that the greatest predators don't need to bare their claws to win. In the years that followed, the Zephyrian Empire would remember this day as the moment they discovered that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can encounter isn't a bigger monster. Sometimes it's something small, calm, and utterly unimpressed by your strength. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it might even let you pet it. The war that never was ended not with the roar of the Vorthik, but with the purr of a house cat named Whiskers, who had done what he did best. Remind everyone around him that true power doesn't need to prove itself. It just needs to exist, confidently, and without apology in whatever space it chooses to claim.